Welcome, dear listeners, to a tranquil voyage through the history of ancient Egypt, a civilization that thrived along the Nile's fertile banks, enduring for over 3,000 years as a testament to human resilience and brilliance. Imagine yourself gliding on a felucca, the river's gentle ripples reflecting a starlit sky, whispering tales of pharaohs, pyramids, and priests who crafted a land of eternal wonders. Let's flow through time, from the first riverbank settlements to the dramatic fall of Cleopatra, with stories of triumph and endurance to lull you into peaceful reflection. Settle in, close your eyes if you wish, and let Egypt's timeless saga unfold. Our story begins in the distant haze of prehistory, around 10,000 BC, when the Sahara was a lush savanna, teeming with herds of antelope, elephants, and wild cattle grazing on abundant grasses under a forgiving sun. Hunter-gatherers roamed these vast plains, wielding flint-tipped spears and arrows crafted from reeds, tracking game across the landscape. They gathered wild millet, tubers, and berries, living in temporary camps of animal hides and branches, moving with the seasons to follow food sources. As the climate gradually shifted, with rainfall decreasing and temperatures rising, the savanna began drying into the vast desert we know today by around 7,000 BC. These early peoples, facing harsher conditions, sought refuge in the Nile Valley, a verdant oasis where the river's annual floods deposited nutrient-rich black silt, creating ideal conditions for planting and settlement. The Nile became their lifeline, providing water, fish, and fertile land amidst the encroaching sands. By 6,000 BC, the Badarian culture had taken root along the river's edge, marking the beginning of settled life in Egypt. These people built simple reed huts with mud floors, clustered in small villages that hugged the Nile's banks for easy access to water. They tamed wild cattle, sheep, and goats, herding them in enclosures, and cultivated barley, emmer wheat, and flax, sowing seeds in the flood-enriched soil. Pottery was a hallmark of their craft. Vessels with distinctive black-topped rims, fired in open pits to create durable containers for storing grain and water. Daily life revolved around the river. Men fished with harpoons and nets, women ground grain using stone querns and baked bread in clay ovens, while children played with toys carved from wood or bone. Their graves, dug into the desert fringe to preserve bodies in the dry sand, held faience beads, early glazed ceramics, ostrich eggshells for water containers, and cowrie shells from the distant Red Sea, indicating emerging trade networks. Bodies were placed in a curled fetal position, facing west toward the setting sun, symbolizing rebirth in the afterlife, a belief that would evolve into Egypt's complex funerary traditions. These early farmers lived in harmony with the Nile's rhythms, celebrating floods with rituals, their songs and dances lost to time, but echoing in the valley's enduring spirit. As centuries passed, by 4500 BC, the Nakada Hatshepsut culture emerged, building on Badarian foundations and transforming the valley with greater ingenuity and social complexity. They developed sophisticated irrigation systems, digging ditches and basins to capture and distribute the Nile's floods, ensuring consistent crops of lentils, peas, chickpeas, and wheat, even in drier years. Copper tools appeared, chisels, awls, and pins smelted from auries traded from Sinai, replacing flint and allowing for finer craftsmanship. Artisans carved intricate ivory combs adorned with motifs of gazelles, ibexes, and hippopotami, reflecting a deep spiritual connection to the natural world, and perhaps invoking protection from animal spirits. Nakada villages expanded into Nakada towns with houses of mud brick featuring thatched roofs and storage pits for surplus food. Potters painted clay vessels with vivid scenes of boats navigating the Nile, birds in flight, and scorpions, evoking a river-centric life filled with trade, fishing, and ritual processions. Burials grew more elaborate, revealing social stratification. Elites were interred with jars of beer brewed from barley, loaves of bread, and jewelry of gold and lapis lazuli, while commoners labored in fields and workshops, their simpler graves holding basic tools. This period saw the rise of specialized crafts. Weavers spun flax into linen for clothing, brewers fermented beer for daily sustenance and offerings, and shamans conducted rituals to appease gods of fertility and the river. By 3400 BC, Nakada represented a climax of prehistoric development, with proto-states forming in key cities like Hierakonpolis in the south and Buto in the north. Hierakonpolis, a bustling hub, featured breweries producing beer on a large scale, temples dedicated to early deities like Horus, the falcon god, and workshops churning out slate pallets for grinding cosmetics. Archaeological excavations have uncovered a painted tomb depicting a chief smiting foes with a pear-shaped mace, a scene of raw power that foreshadowed pharaonic iconography. Scepters and mace heads, carved from precious stones like diorite, symbolized authority, as leaders amassed wealth through control of trade routes, bringing copper from Sinai, obsidian from Ethiopia, and shells from the Mediterranean. Society became more hierarchical. Chiefs lived in larger houses with courtyards surrounded by retainers, while farmers and artisans paid tribute in grain and labor. Rituals intensified, with animal sacrifices to ensure floods and harvests, and community feasts strengthening bonds. Competition between Upper and Lower Egypt's leaders grew, with skirmishes over resources setting the stage for unification and the birth of a nation. Around 3100 BC, a transformative moment arrived that would define Egypt's future. Legend credits King Menes, possibly the historical Nama with uniting the two lands, Upper Egypt, symbolized by the lotus flower and white crown, and Lower Egypt, represented by the papyrus plant and red crown. This unification launched the early dynastic period, spanning from 3100 to 2086 BC, marking the transition from prehistory to recorded history. The Nama palette, a ceremonial slate artifact discovered in Hierakonpolis, vividly captures this event, showing the king wearing both crowns on opposite sides, smiting enemies with a mace, while a falcon, Horus, holds a captive. This artifact, used for mixing eye paint, served as propaganda, proclaiming the king's divine right to rule. Memphis was founded near the delta's apex as the new capital, strategically positioned to control trade and administration, becoming a vibrant hub of activity with markets, temples, and palaces. Scribes trained in temples developed hieroglyphs, a script of pictorial symbols representing sounds and ideas, etching records on stone slabs and papyrus scrolls, documenting taxes, harvests, and royal decrees for the first time. Pharaohs of the first and second dynasties, like Jer and Den, solidified power through monumental building and religious reforms. They constructed mastaba tombs, rectangular, flat-roofed structures of mud brick, at sacred sites like Abydos, filled with wine jars from Canaan, copper weapons forged in local smithies, and even sacrificed retainers to accompany the king in death. Ship pits adjacent to tombs held full-size cedar boats, imported from Lebanon's forests, intended for the pharaoh's journey through the underworld to join the gods. Granaries stored surplus grain from bountiful harvests, distributed during lean times to maintain loyalty. Irrigation canals, expanded from Nakada times, fed growing villages, while taxes in kind, grain, livestock, and labor funded royal projects. The pharaoh, viewed as a living god incarnate of Horus, unified diverse tribes from the cataracts to the delta, his divine authority binding the land through rituals at temples dedicated to Ptah, the creator god of Memphis. Priests performed daily offerings of bread, beer, and incense, ensuring cosmic order, or Ma'at. This era laid the foundational institutions of Egypt's centralized state, bureaucracy, religion, and kingship, with scribes and priests as pillars of stability, allowing the civilization to flourish. The Old Kingdom, from 2686 to 2181 BC, dawned as the Pyramid Age, a golden era of architectural ambition and cultural achievement that still awes humanity. Pharaoh Djoser of the Third Dynasty, reigning around 2650 BC, entrusted his vizier Imhotep, a brilliant polymath versed in engineering, medicine, astronomy, and theology, to design a tomb that transcended traditional mastabas. At Saqqara, Imhotep innovated by stacking 6 progressively smaller mastabas atop one another, creating the Step Pyramid, a towering 62-meter marvel built entirely of limestone, the world's first large-scale stone structure. The surrounding complex included courtyards for rituals, shrines to gods, and a colonnaded hall with engaged columns mimicking bundled reeds evoking the Nile's marshes. This design not only served as a tomb, but as an eternal palace, ensuring Djoser's immortality. Imhotep's genius earned him deification centuries later. Worshipped as a god of wisdom and healing, his statues placed in temples across Egypt. Succeeding pharaohs built on this legacy. Sneferu, founder of the Fourth Dynasty, pushed pyramid design further, constructing three massive monuments at Meidum and Dashur. His first effort at Meidum began as a step pyramid, but collapsed due to steep angles, teaching valuable lessons in stability. At Dashur, the bent pyramid started with a 54-degree incline, but shifted to 43 degrees mid-construction to prevent failure, resulting in its distinctive shape. Undeterred, Sneferu completed the Red Pyramid, the first true smooth-sided pyramid, its limestone casing originally white but now revealing reddish hues underneath. These projects required immense organization, quarrying stone from Aswan, transporting it on Nile barges and ramp systems to place blocks, demonstrating Egypt's engineering prowess. Sneferu's son, Khufu, surpassed his father, erecting the Great Pyramid at Giza around 2570 BC. This colossal structure, originally 146 meters tall, comprised 2.3 million limestone blocks, each weighing tons, precisely cut and aligned with the cardinal points and Orion's belt, symbolizing the pharaoh's stellar afterlife. Construction spanned 20 years, involving tens of thousands of workers, skilled craftsmen, and farmers during off-seasons, housed in nearby villages, fed diets of bread, onions, garlic, and beer. Khafra, Khufu's son, built his pyramid nearby, slightly smaller but appearing taller due to higher ground, with surviving casing stones at the apex. His complex included the Great Sphinx, a 73-meter-long, lion-bodied statue with a pharaoh's head, carved from a single bedrock outcrop, guardian of the plateau and embodiment of royal power. Menkaura's pyramid, the smallest of the trio, completed Giza's iconic skyline, its granite casing from Aswan, adding grandeur. The Old Kingdom thrived under this Fourth Dynasty peak. Viziers like Ptahhotep, author of wisdom texts advising on ethics and governance, managed a vast bureaucracy, collecting taxes and organizing labor. Priests honored Re, the sun god, in open-air sun temples with obelisks symbolizing rays of light. Trade expeditions brought cedar wood from Byblos for boats and furniture, turquoise from Sinai mines, and gold from Nubia. Scribes using hieratic script, a cursive form of hieroglyphs, recorded everything on papyrus, from census data to medical recipes, treating ailments with honey and herbs. artisans carved serene statues of pharaohs in diorite and basalt, depicting ideal youth and strength placed in temples to receive offerings. Society was stratified, pharaoh at the top, nobles and priests below, then scribes, craftsmen, and farmers, but that ensured justice, with laws protecting the weak. However, prolonged droughts around 2200 BC disrupted Nile floods, causing famine, while the extraordinarily long reign of Pepi II, over 90 years, in the 6th dynasty led to weakened central control, nomarchs gaining autonomy, and eventual collapse into the first intermediate period by 2101 BC. This turbulent era saw Egypt splinter into rival regions, with power decentralized among nomarchs acting as petty kings in cities like Heracleopolis in the north and Thebes in the south. Contemporary texts such as the Admonitions of Ipui paint a vivid picture of chaos, famines where the river is blood, social upheaval with servants rebelling against masters, and foreign incursions disrupting trade. Rival factions clashed over resources, with battles fought using copper weapons and wooden shields, while trade routes faltered, leading to shortages of imported goods. Yet, amid the disorder, local rulers invested in arts and religion, building modest temples and tombs, preserving cultural continuity. Around 2135 BC, Mentuhotep-Anu, a determined warrior prince from Thebes, launched campaigns to reunite the land, defeating Heracleopolitan forces in a series of battles, culminating in victory and the restoration of unity. His mortuary temple, at Deir el-Bahari, terraced into cliffs, celebrated this achievement with reliefs of conquests and offerings. Mentuhotep's success launched the Middle Kingdom, enduring until 1786 BC, a period of renewal and expansion. Middle Kingdom pharaohs like Amenemhetep, Mentuhotep's successor, relocated the capital to Ichtawi near Memphis for better control, and established a co-regency system to ensure smooth successions, reducing intrigue. They built massive fortresses along the Nubian border, like those at Semna, to secure gold mines and trade routes, manned by archers and spearmen. Senusret III, one of the era's greatest kings, conducted vigorous campaigns south to the Second Cataract, erecting boundary stelae inscribed with threats to invaders, and north into Canaan to protect caravan paths. He dug extensive canals, such as the Bar Yusuf, linking the Nile to the Fayum oasis, transforming it into a vast agricultural basin producing grains and fruits, boosting the economy. His statues, with realistic stern faces showing furrowed brows and large ears, departed from Old Kingdom idealism, portraying a ruler attuned to his people's needs. Trade flourished under these kings. Expeditions to Punt, a mysterious land likely in modern Somalia or Eritrea, returned with myrrh trees for temple gardens, ebony wood for furniture, incense for rituals, gold, and exotic animals like baboons and leopards. Caravans from Sinai brought turquoise and copper, while ships from Byblos carried cedar. The Middle Kingdom saw a literary renaissance. Scribes composed the Tale of Sinuhe, a gripping narrative of a courtier's exile in Syria and triumphant return, exploring themes of loyalty and identity. Instructions of Amenemhat provided royal advice, warning of palace plots, while the eloquent peasant satirized bureaucracy through a farmer's eloquent pleas for justice. Thebes emerged as a religious powerhouse, with Amun's cult ascending. His temple at Karnak expanded, with lotus-shaped columns symbolizing creation from primordial waters and towering obelisks dedicated to the hidden god. Craft thrived. Artisans fashioned faience scarabs engraved with protective spells, jewelry of gold and carnelian, and reliefs depicting pharaohs offering to gods like Osiris, lord of the afterlife. Farmers worked fertile fields with wooden plows pulled by oxen, harvesting with sickles and threshing grain under the sun, while women wove fine linen garments dyed in vibrant colors from plants. Beer brewing was an art, with fermented barley flavored with dates, essential for daily meals and offerings. Society emphasized ma'at, balance and justice, with laws recorded on papyri, courts resolving disputes, and pharaohs portrayed as shepherds of the people. However, by 1800 BC, weak successes, internal strife, and perhaps climatic changes led to economic woes. Over-reliance on Nubian tribute straining resources, and the kingdom's fragmentation into the Second Intermediate Period. The Second Intermediate Period brought invasion and division. Around 1780 BC, the Hyksos, Semitic-speaking peoples from the Levant, migrated into the Delta, eventually seizing power and ruling from Avaris as the 15th dynasty. They introduced revolutionary technologies: horse-drawn chariots for swift warfare, bronze swords and daggers for superior combat, and composite bows of wood, sinew, and horn for longer range. Adopting Egyptian customs, Hyksos kings took titles like pharaoh and built temples, but worshipped Seth, the storm god associated with foreigners, blending him with their Baal. Their rule fostered cultural exchange. Levantine pottery with geometric designs appeared alongside Egyptian wares, and scarabs inscribed with royal names circulated widely. In the south, Thebes maintained independence under the 17th dynasty, resisting Hyksos dominance. Princes like Seqenenretau rallied forces, his mummy revealing brutal axe wounds from a fatal battle, a testament to the fierce struggle. His son Kamosi continued the fight, capturing Hyksos ships loaded with goods and raiding northern territories, his stela boasting of victories. Finally, Ahmose, Kamose's brother, completed the expulsion around 1550 BC, sacking Avaris, pursuing the Hyksos to Sharuhen in Canaan, and unifying Egypt once more. Ahmose's triumph founded the 18th dynasty and the New Kingdom, ushering in Egypt's imperial zenith. The New Kingdom, from 1550 to 1070 BC, represented Egypt's pinnacle of power, wealth, and cultural splendor, with pharaohs extending borders and amassing treasures. Ahmose I consolidated rule by marrying his sister, Ahmose Nefertari, establishing divine bloodlines and rewarding loyal soldiers with land grants. His son, Amenhotep I, focused on domestic reforms, standardizing measures and weights for fair trade. Thutmose I, succeeding him, pushed military frontiers, campaigning deep into Nubia and reaching the Euphrates in Syria, erecting stelae to mark Egypt's dominion and bringing back tribute of gold, slaves, and exotic woods. His daughter Hatshepsut, one of history's most remarkable women, became regent for young Thutmose III, then declared herself pharaoh, donning male attire and a false beard in statues to legitimize her rule. Hatshepsut prioritized trade and building, sending a famous expedition to Punt around 1470 BC. 5 ships returned laden with myrrh trees planted in temple gardens, ebony, ivory, frankincense, and live animals, as vividly depicted in reliefs at her mortuary temple in Deir el-Bahri, a terraced masterpiece blending with cliffs. Her reign brought peace and prosperity with obelisks, tall, 4-sided pillars tipped with gold, erected at Karnak to honor Amun-Re, the fused sun god. Upon Hatshepsut's death, Thutmose III, dubbed the Napoleon of Egypt, unleashed pent-up military ambition, leading 17 campaigns over 20 years. His crowning achievement was the Battle of Megiddo in 1458 BC, where he surprised Canaanite coalitions by marching through a narrow pass, routing them with 20,000 troops and capturing vast spoils, horses, chariots, and gold that enriched Egypt. Tribute flowed from vassal states in Mitanni, Babylon, and Hittite lands, filling temples with wealth. Amenhotep III, Thutmose's grandson, presided over an era of unparalleled luxury, known as the Magnificent. He built the Luxor Temple with its massive colonnades and the Colossi of Memnon, 2 18-meter statues guarding his mortuary temple, while his palace at Malkata featured painted floors and gardens. Diplomatic marriages with foreign princesses and letters on clay tablets, the Amarna letters maintained alliances, exchanging gifts like gold statues for horses. Amenhotep III's son, Akhenaten, introduced radical change, rejecting polytheism for monotheistic worship of the Aten, the sun disk, symbolized by rays ending in hands. He built a new capital, Amarna, with open-air temples and boundary stelae proclaiming his vision. Art shifted to naturalistic styles, showing Akhenaten with elongated features, alongside his beautiful wife Nefertiti. Her famous bust, discovered in 1912, captures elegant poise, and their 6 daughters in intimate family scenes. Nefertiti may have co-ruled or even succeeded as pharaoh, but the reforms alienated powerful Amun priests, leading to economic disruption. Upon Akhenaten's death, around 1335 BC, his young son Tutankhaten, renamed Tutankhamun, restored traditional gods, abandoning Amarna and returning to Thebes. Tutankhamun's brief reign ended at 19, possibly from malaria or injury, but his intact tomb, discovered by Howard Carter in 1922, revealed over 5,000 artifacts, golden coffins, jeweled daggers, chariots, and the iconic death mask, offering a glimpse into New Kingdom opulence. The 19th dynasty brought Ramses and Seti I, who campaigned in Libya and Syria, restoring temples defaced under Akhenaten. Ramses II, the Great, reigned 66 years from 1279 BC, embodying pharaonic grandeur. His early triumph was the Battle of Kadesh in 1275 BC against the Hittites, where 5,000 Egyptian chariots clashed with 3,500 Hittite ones in a near-disaster-turned stalemate, spun as victory in temple reliefs. Years later, he signed history's first recorded peace treaty with Hattusili III, marrying a Hittite princess to seal alliance. Ramses built prolifically the hypostyle hall at Karnak with 134 columns, the Ramesseum mortuary temple, and Abu Simbel's rock-cut temples, where four 20-meter statues of himself guard the facade, relocated in the 1960s to save from flooding. His city, Ramesses in the Delta, bustled with gardens, lakes, and palaces. Workers in Deir el-Medina, a village for tomb builders, left records of daily life, strikes over delayed rations, love letters on ostraca, and medical recipes, revealing a literate, organized society. The New Kingdom waned with challenges. Meneptah repelled sea peoples, mysterious seafaring invaders, in 1209 BC, his stela mentioning Israel for the first time. Ramses III, last great pharaoh, defeated sea peoples again in naval and land battles around 1175 BC, depicted in Medinet Habu reliefs, but faced internal plots, including a harem conspiracy that nearly killed him. Economic strain from wars, corruption, and grain shortages led to the first recorded labor strike. By 1070 BC, with Smendes founding the 21st dynasty in Tanis, the New Kingdom ended, plunging Egypt into the Third Intermediate Period. From 1070 to 712 BC, Egypt fragmented once more. The 21st dynasty ruled the north from Tanis, while Theban high priests like Herihor controlled the south, effectively dividing the land. Libyan chieftains, settled as mercenaries, rose to power, founding the 22nd and 23rd dynasties in Bubastis and Leontopolis. Shoshenqesh, a Libyan pharaoh, unified briefly and sacked Jerusalem around 925 BC, carrying off temple treasures as noted in the Bible. His campaign reliefs at Karnak boasting victories. However, rivalries led to further division. Priestesses, titled God's Wife of Amun, wielded influence in Thebes, adopting successors to maintain power. Nubian kings from Kush, viewing themselves as Egypt's true heirs, intervened. Piye, a pious ruler, launched a campaign in 728 BC, capturing Memphis and Thebes. His victory, stellar, emphasizing restoration of Ma'at. The 25th dynasty, or Kushite, revived traditions, building small, steep-sided pyramids in Napata and Meroe, restoring temples and promoting Amun worship. Taharqa, greatest Kushite king, built colonnades at Karnak and faced Assyrian threats, his reign marked by prosperity but ending in defeat. Assyrian invasions under Esarhaddon in 671 BC sacked Memphis, installing puppets, while Ashurbanipal in 603 BC razed Thebes, carrying off treasures. Yet Psamtikwa, with Greek and Carian mercenaries, expelled Assyrians by 664 BC, founding the 26th dynasty and the Late Period, a time of renaissance amid foreign pressures. The Sate dynasty, from 664 to 525 BC, saw cultural revival. Psamtik I reunified Egypt, encouraging Greek trade at Naucratis, a delta port where Hellenic pottery and ideas flowed in. Necho, his son, attempted a Suez Canal precursor, linking the Nile to the Red Sea for trade, and commissioned Phoenicians to circumnavigate Africa, a 3-year voyage succeeding around 595 BC. Aprias waged wars in Libya and Judah, but Amasis II stabilized rule, allying with Greece and building temples with archaic-style reliefs hearkening to Old Kingdom art. Artisans crafted exquisite bronze statues of Bastet and Isis, while scribes adopted demotic script for everyday use, writing contracts and stories. Persian king Cambyses invaded in 525 BC, defeating Psamtik III at Pelusium, incorporating Egypt as a satrapy. Darius V, a tolerant ruler, completed Necho's canal, built temples like Hebes in Karga Oasis to Amun, and codified laws, but revolts simmered, with Egyptians resenting tribute and labor demands. Native uprisings like that of Inaros, aided by Athens, failed, but Emertius, in 404 BC, briefly established the 28th dynasty, only for Persia to reclaim control until the 30th dynasty under Nectanebo Mantuwu, who fortified borders and built grand temples like Philae's Isis sanctuary. Alexander the Great's conquest in 332 BC ended Persian rule. Welcomed as liberator, he visited Siwa Oasis, where the oracle declared him son of Amun, legitimizing his pharaonic title. Founding Alexandria on the Mediterranean, he envisioned a cosmopolitan hub. It grew into a metropolis with the pharaoh's lighthouse, one of the 7 wonders, guiding ships with its fire beacon, and the Great Library, housing 500,000 scrolls of global knowledge. After Alexander's death, in 323 BC. His general Ptolemy the Soter seized Egypt, establishing the Ptolemaic dynasty, the last pharaonic line. Ptolemies blended Greek and Egyptian cultures, ruling as pharaohs while promoting Hellenistic ways. Ptolemy I built the Serapeum in Alexandria, honoring Serapis, a fusion of Osiris and Apis, and patronized scholars. His son, Ptolemy II Philadelphus, completed the Pharos and library, where Euclid penned geometry texts, Archimedes studied, and Eratosthenes calculated Earth's circumference using shadows in wells. Trade boomed. Elephants from Africa for war, grain exports to Greece, and papyrus monopolized. Cleopatra, the Seleucid princess, married Ptolemy V, strengthening ties. Her marriage celebrated in the Rosetta Stone's decree of 196 BC, inscribed in Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphs, key to Champollion's 1822 decipherment. Later, Ptolemies faced internal strife, sibling rivalries, and rebellions, but maintained power through Roman alliances. Cleopatra's son, Philopator, ascending in 51 BC at 18, stood as the dynasty's brilliant finale. Fluent in Egyptian, unique among Ptolemies, she presented as Isis reincarnate, minting coins with her image and funding temples. Allying with Julius Caesar in 47 BC, during a civil war with her brother Ptolemy XIII, she bore his son Caesarion, solidifying her rule. After Caesar's 44 BC assassination, she partnered with Mark Antony, bearing twins Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene, and son Ptolemy Philadelphus. They envisioned an Eastern empire, but Octavian, Caesar's heir, declared war. The Battle of Actium in 31 BC saw their fleet defeated, 200 ships lost to Octavian's agile vessels. Fleeing to Alexandria, Antony and Cleopatra committed suicide in 30 BC, her by ASP bite, legend says, as Octavian annexed Egypt, ending 3,000 years of pharaonic rule. Egypt's astonishing 3,000-year endurance stemmed from the Nile's annual gift, floods depositing silt that ensured bountiful harvests of wheat, barley, and flax, sustaining millions in a harsh desert. This reliability fostered stability, allowing surplus for trade, building, and culture. Pharaohs, divine kings embodying Horus, and later Amun-Re unified diverse regions, their godlike status quelling dissent and inspiring loyalty through rituals and monuments. Temples like Karnak, vast complexes with pylons, hyperstyle halls, and sacred lakes, served as economic hubs, owning lands and employing thousands, while priests preserved knowledge. Hieroglyphs and scripts, hieratic for administration, demotic for daily use, recorded everything from laws to literature, ensuring continuity across dynasties. Trade networks brought wealth. Incense from Punt for mummification, gold from Nubia for coffins, cedar from Lebanon for boats, fueling economy and diplomacy. Military innovations, from Hyksos chariots to new kingdom archers, protected borders, while fortifications and campaigns expanded influence. Adaptability was key. Egypt absorbed conquerors, incorporating Hyksos technology, Persian administration, and Greek philosophy into its fabric. Gods evolved. Amun merged with Re. Isis gained universal appeal, spreading to Rome. Daily life reinforced resilience. Farmers timed planting with the star Sirius's rising, signaling floods. Women managed households, brewing beer and weaving. Children learned trades. Festivals like Opet, with Amun's statue paraded from Karnak to Luxor, renewed bonds between God's king and people. Even in intermediate periods, core beliefs in Ma'at, truth, balance, justice endured, guiding recovery. Under Rome, Egypt became a province, its grain vital, but native culture persisted in Coptic Christianity, blending old gods. By 2025, Egypt's legacy captivates. Giza's pyramids defy time. Luxor's temples whisper secrets. Tutankhamun's treasures gleam in museums. Films romanticize Cleopatra. Scholars decode papyri, revealing poems and potions. Tourists sail the Nile, echoing ancient feluccas, while archaeologists uncover lost cities. And so, the story closes, like the night sky folding its wings. Rest easy now. Let dreams carry you further than words ever could. Good night, until we meet again beneath the stars.